How to understand Romans chapter 10, verse 9. How to understand Romans 10, verse 9. The phrase, confess with thy mouth, sounds like a work is necessary for salvation. Look with me at Romans 10, verse 9. That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. Some will go to Romans 10, verse 9, and what they'll say is, for you to be saved, you have to make a public confession. Because Romans 10:9 says that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, so if you don't do that, then you're not saved. And what I'm just going to suggest to you is this, and maybe I'll just ask the question this way. Based upon what you know about the gospel, do you have to make a spoken public confession in order to be saved? You don't. And the simplest proof of that, are there people that are mute, that are unable to speak? Well, if you had to make a spoken public confession to be saved, then a mute person could never be saved. Now, some folks will say, well, this verse isn't about the dispensation of grace. This verse is under the kingdom program. The problem with that, look at verse 8. But what saith it? The word is nigh thee, even in thy mouth and in thy heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. So verse 9 is Paul's gospel. Isn't that what it says? Which we preach. And even if you make this verse something about the kingdom gospel, it doesn't really solve the problem. Because were there mute people alive during the Lord's earthly ministry? Yes. Did they have to make a spoken confession in order to be saved? No. So what's the explanation? Well, the explanation is simple. Look at verse 9. That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and then notice what it says, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. So it talks there about your mouth, and it talks there about your heart. And what it's referring to is simply your will, your inner man. Every action that you take, every action that your physical body performs, your inner man told the body to perform. So if I'm going to wrap my knuckles on that wood right there, before I do that, what has to happen? There has to be an internal decision to do that, right? Before my hand does that, I made a decision to do that. My body is an extension of my inner man, right? So when verse 9 talks about confessing with thy mouth, it's not referring to these lips. If it was referring to these lips, then mute people couldn't be saved. What it's talking about is it's talking about the inner man deciding to confess, deciding to acknowledge the Lord Jesus Christ. You can see that from verse 9 where it says, and shalt believe in thine heart. When it refers to believing in thine heart, is it talking about the organ that pumps blood? Is that how you get saved? You realize that the four-chambered organ in your heart is a physical component of your being. It's not the spiritual component of your being. I can prove that by the following. You can get a new physical heart, but it doesn't change your person. You still have the same spirit. You still have the same soul. Look with me at verse 10. Romans chapter 10, verse 10. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. See, that verse confirms our understanding, because let me ask it this way. Well, if you with the heart believe unto righteousness, is there anything else you need to do to get saved? No. What this is talking about, it's not talking about the physical organs, it's talking about the inner man deciding to believe and confess Christ. That's what it's referring to. So it's not talking about a work that you perform. It's talking about the way you get saved today is in your inner man, you realize, I am a sinner, I deserve God's wrath, I have no hope whatsoever in myself. And what I am going to do is with my heart, by that I mean the inner man, I'm going to believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and be saved. That's what it's referring to.